Welcome back to Phoenix Forge. So on today's essential skills lesson, I'm going to show you how to make a set-eye hook. So in order to make our set-eye hook, what we need is 195mm of 20x6. Now I forged myself a piece under the power hammer because I didn't have any in stock. So what I need to do is put a mark on my piece of stock at 38mm on one end. I'm also going to put that mark on my anvil. And on the other end, I'm going to mark my bar at 70mm. And then I'm going to center punch those. Now remember guys, if you haven't done so already, click that subscribe button and the notification bell so you get alerted to our new videos that come out every Monday, Wednesday and Friday. Okay, so I want to center punch these nice and close to the edge so that it actually swells the bar up slightly. And so when it's nice and hot, I can find it on the anvil. Okay, so I've got my bar nice and hot, out to me mark. There it is. Down at 45 degrees. And come in with a hammer aiming for that corner of that anvil. Once you've got that mark established, keep hitting it in the same spot, but lift your arm up until your piece of stock is parallel with the anvil. If it twists slightly, don't panic. You just flatten that off a little. And then we can forge some of this down. Now your 20x6 should forge down to about 10mm square. There or thereabouts. There we are. So there's that first heat. The reason it's called a set eye hook is because it has a set down eye, and that's what we've got to forge first. So we're on the second heat here. I'm just going to refine this a little bit. Forge it square. So a lump in the middle. Forge that out. Right, happy with that. We're down to square, it's nice and parallel and straight. The next thing to do is obviously turn it through 45 degrees and forge this square section into an octagon. Turn through 90 degrees again, do the opposite side. And we've gone from square stock to octagon. Next thing to do then is turn it through 22 degrees, so we end up with that corner facing upwards, and forge it into a hexadecagon. But I'm going to get it hot. So if I get your corners facing upwards, run your hammer down the full length of the bar. And we're trying to get all those corners off. Remember, for a blacksmith to forge round bar, we've got to go to square, to octagon, to hexadecagon, to a 32-sided shape, which I don't remember the name of. Someone will let me know in the comments. And then your bar is pretty much round at that point. Now remember, you want to keep your anvil nice and clean. Any scale or rubbish on your anvil face, or even hammer marks in your anvil face, they're going to transfer onto your work. So you want to keep your anvil in good condition, otherwise you'll be getting some really rough sections coming out of your work. Okay, so I'm pretty happy with that. Let's round up that end a little bit more. Happy days. So there's my round set down section, and that measures, find a rule, that measures approximately 70mm or so in length. So the next step of this set eye hook is to start forging the tapers. A set eye hook has a belly in the middle, and then it tapers towards the back and it tapers down towards the front, and traditionally they're for holding sacks of wheat and barley and flour and whatnot. So in order to do this, I'm going to do it with the center punch mark facing upwards and the set parallel with the anvil, and we're going to be coming in on that corner and forging it back to the center there. Once we've done one side, I'll then spin it around in my tongs and we'll forge the point on the far side of the bar. Okay, so my bar's nice and hot. I want to come in quite steep initially, because I don't want to create a fold over on my set down. Now I want to work back towards this point, so I can change the angle of my hammer, come in flatter, and then turn it through 90 degrees and forge that material in. I don't want it to swell up, I want it to stay at 6mm. There we are. So we taper from that center punch mark all the way down to the shoulder there. I do still have a slight step, and I want to keep that to show that it did have a set down in it. Okay, happy with that? Time to spin that around and start on the point on the other end. Okay, nice and hot. Clean off that little bit of slag. Come in nice and steep. Forge that down to a point first. If you're worried about hitting the anvil, go to the far edge. Get that point established. Once you've got that point on, then we can change our angle. We can drop the angle of the hammer slightly and work towards that center section. Look down towards that point. Remember, it wants to stay at 6mm, so I want to forge that in, stop it swelling up. There we are. That's the finished section forged. I need to straighten this out a little bit because it's tapering up. But we taper back to my center punch, and then from the center punch back down to the set on the other side into that round section. Job's a good one. Okay, so I've got my blank for my set eye hook forged out. Now I need to start forming this to form both the eye on this end and then the hook on the rest of it. So I'm going to take a pair of flat bits. It gets a little bit tricky now because you're trying to hold a tapered piece of stock, but with my flat bits I can wedge it up against the hinge plate, and I should be able to hold that and stop it moving around too much. So warm that piece up and we'll get the bends put in there and forge an eye. Right, so we need to bend this at 90 degrees to start, so I'm just going to take my jug of water and cool down the section where I don't want it to bend. So that's back here. And then I'm actually going to cool down most of that round section as well, just leaving a small portion hot, and then over to the anvil. Okay, so I've still got some heat in there, so we can bend this down to 90 degrees. Thereabouts. 80, 85 is absolutely fine. So I've got that first bend in there. Now, what I want to do next is take some short heats. I want to put a bend in the far end first, and then I'm going to put a counter bend just here behind this set down, so that we form the front and back of our eye, and then we'll do the center section. Okay, over to the bick. And I say we're going to do that front end first. Now my bick on my anvil is quite broad. It's actually about 25mm round, which is a bit big for this, but it will get started. There we go. Now I'm going to take another heat simply because I need to control where the heat is on here. I want to quench off my first bend that I put in here in order to get that little section there to bend in the other direction. Okay, so I want to cool down the actual body and that first little bit of bend. I don't want that to change. Right, so over to the anvil. Okay, up against the bick, and we need to counter bend that. You don't want to pinch it against the bick itself, but there you are. We've got our first bend, our second bend, and our third bend. We've got a straight section in the center, which I can then close up on the next heat. Okay, so let's form this up a little bit. Get that bend started. Keep an eye on it. You can stop and have a look and see if you're bending in the right places. Okay, so you can see what's going on. I have to keep turning it to see what's happening. Right, I've got a bit too much bend up here, not enough back here, so I need to take another heat, cool off this section, leave that section nice and warm, and we should be all right then. Okay, so I've just quenched that, and we should be able to bend it up further back and get that form round into my eye. Now you don't want to flatten that too much, and mine's slightly squashed, so what I'm actually going to do now is get a round drift, get that all warmed up, and just drop a drift through it, and it will tidy that up nicely. Okay, so I haven't got a drift the right size for this, so what I'm going to do instead is just take my round punch, stick it in the centre there, try and support it near an edge. I'm just going to open it up a fraction until it tidies the eye up a little bit. Now I'm a little bit tight there, so I can just tidy that up just a tiny bit. I'm only very gently tapping this. Let's tidy that up a little bit. Come in then. There we go, that's a bit better. Right, there's my eye formed. So we need to start forming up this hook then. Okay, so we're ready now to do the counter bends. So there's actually 3 bends in this set eye hook. There's 2 counter bends, and then obviously the bend in the center that forms the hook. So I want to start that off. There we go. More perhaps. Right, that'll be plenty. Right, so there's the first bend. I need to do exactly the same right on the tip. So I'm going to spin it around in my tongs, and then we've got the center section to wrap around as well. Right, so I've spun that around. We'll do the counter bend this side now. Try and do it in exactly the same place on your anvil as you did the last one, so that they end up the same size. Now that's probably enough. Make sure it's all nice and flat before I do the next bit. So we've got our two bends at both ends. We now need to bend this in the opposite direction in the center. So I want to warm this up. I want the center section nice and hot. I don't want these two ends hot because I don't want to distort that. So I'm going to cool those down as I do it. So I've cooled down my ends. I'm going to use a ball peen for this because I want to come into this curve here. And you're going to have to keep coming back, flatten it off, and then coming back to the bick. Right, starting to take shape. So I'm going to take another heat and we'll continue that. Back onto the bick, bend it round. Obviously it's going to want to bend sideways just because of how thick it is compared to its width. It's just a case of persevering. So as it tries to buckle and fold on you, just want to bring it back onto the anvil and flatten it off. Now what I need to do is put more bend in this section just here. So I'm going to cool off a little bit more at this end to control that bend. Okay, back onto the anvil. Get your gap where you need it. Just drag a bit of that stock that way. Now I'm not pinching it up against the bick. I'm trying to bend it around it. The other thing you can do is obviously hook it on the bottom and hammer towards yourself. Keep it nice and flat. And I need more bend in this area just here. So keep an eye on it. Keep looking at the shape that you're forming. Keep taking it back to the fire and getting the heat exactly where you need it. Okay, so a little bit more bend at the top here. Get that over there. I can also pull it towards myself. I can use that counter bend to get that where I need it. And it's starting to take shape now. Now I want this a little bit tighter, so what I can do is go over to the flat of the anvil, quench off this top section and sort of close it up a little bit on itself. It's really important to keep an eye on what's going on, keep turning it sideways and checking to make sure you're getting a nice even shape, nice even bends, a good looking curve. Alright, just refine this a little bit. I want a little bit just there. Oh, it's coming. Okay, happy with that. Happy days. So there's the finished set eye hook, guys. It's turned out quite nicely, that one. It's a good little forging exercise for trying at home. Lots of forming and forging in that little piece as well. Now, remember, you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram, support the channel through Patreon. Remember to click that subscribe tab and let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And we'll see you here next time in the workshop. Cheers, guys.